Three. Hello, my name is Sarthak Bhardwaj, and welcome to Letter of Law interviews. So most of you might know that the Bar Council of India has recently come out with a notification which mandates that mediation will now be compulsorily taught to law students across the country. And to talk about this new course, I have with me an advocate, Mohit Mokal sir. Sir was involved in the drafting process of this course, and he's someone who gave shape to this course, which we will study in the times to come. Sir is a graduate from the Jindal Global Law School, and he's a lawyer based out of Mumbai. He's an expert mediator with a keen interest in ADR and related fields. So I'm so happy to be in conversation with you today, sir. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sarthak, for that very warm welcome. Although I would like to put it for the record that I am by no means an expert mediator yet, and I shall keep that title for people who deserve it yet.
All right. So, sir, I think the right place to start would be by you providing a sort of overview of what this course is all about. And if you could also talk about how this course is different from the ADR courses already being taught to law
Right.
students. Yeah.
All right. So, in general, this course includes topics where we will help the students understand what a dispute is. We teach them different ways to resolve them. Now, we teach them theories about restorative justice and how that is related to mediation, how theories of peaceful, non-violent dispute resolution can also be practiced. Um, and then more specifically, it talks about what is mediation, what exactly does the process include, what kind of stages are there in a mediation. It teaches you how to conduct a mediation proceeding. Um, we also have tried to include practical skills like communication skills, using appropriate language, neutral language for that matter, skills that techniques you can use to gather information, solve problems, and help parties make decisions. Uh, Apart from this, I mean, we've also tried to look out to, as practicing mediators, what all do students need to know, as what kind of qualities does a mediator have, what kind of code of ethics does a mediator follow, is there something like this, is there some kind of unwritten rule. uh, Apart from that, then after conducting mediations, we teach them about how to draft settlement agreements, the laws around settlement agreements, how to invoke a mediation, how to enforce a mediation, how to challenge it, uh, and and then case law around mediation until now, what has been said by the courts. Uh, and lastly, we talk about some international developments in mediation. Now, this course is very starkly different from the current ADR program, which has been prescribed to law students. Uh, a few very important structural changes have been made. Now, the ADR course that students learn right now, it introduces them to this alternate dispute resolution processes. It briefly talks about negotiation, mediation, but it focuses a lot on arbitration, for the simple reason that there is arbitration legislation in force today, and the fact that more arbitrations have been conducted in the last decade than in the last 40 years in India. Arbitration practice has been picking up, and for that respect, it is appropriate. But what is lacking is something like this, with a little bit of more practical exercises for mediation. Because, as you know, mediation is starkly opposite, or different at least, as a concept from adjudication, which includes arbitration or litigation. And so, to help students get this kind of perspective shift, we have tried to introduce this subject that can help students look at mediation as just an appropriate method of dispute resolution as arbitration or litigation.
Wow. So that's a lot to take in. So you talked about how this course is specifically intended to equip students with practical skills. So if
Right.
we can go into a little specifics on that, because I really believe mediation as a course is really more about the practicality. And so, what does the
Right.
course do to equip future mediators and law students with the skills required?
Right. So, see, when you are in law school, in actual practicality, you have very few subjects apart from your internships, which are part of your law school,
Right.
that help you realize what the practice is like, how the CPC actually works, and things like that. But in our mediation course, now the challenge is that because most mediations are confidential, it's very difficult for students to kind of understand what goes on behind that curtain and how appropriately to do that role effectively. And to tackle this problem, we have in the lecture through different theory and practical modules have tried to include to teach students the different styles of mediation. Now, this can include evaluative, facilitative, or transformative. These are different approaches of how mediators can handle a problem. We also teach them effective communication skills like active listening, how to maintain neutral language, how to use your body language effectively, how to gather information from parties, how to get them to summarize, how to clarify, just to ensure that everyone's on the same page. And this is all going to be done through practical role plays. As you might know, any mediation course that is prescribed, like the 40-hour course by the Supreme Court, by the Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee, uh, all of this includes some sort of role play exercises, because that's the only way students will at least get to simulate that experience in class. Now, in these role plays, we will also be looking and helping students with their decision making abilities by also teaching them how to get parties to think about their options outside this position right now. So what is their best alternative, what is their worst alternative, what are the things that we can look to reconcile, um, how to actually break a deadlock that exists between parties, and things like that. So I hope that these kind of exercises will help students get a practical outlook in this course.
Right. I'm sure it will. So, really, really interesting points. Now, all of this brings me to question the kind of research that went behind this course
Mhm.
and how the idea for this was conceived. Because clearly,
Right.
there's so much to it. So, as someone who drafted this course and was part of the whole process, what was it like? What was going on inside the team's mind, and what was the specific intent behind it?
So first of all, I'd just like to give my thanks to Mr. Panchu, who runs the Center for Mediation Studies in Chennai. And I was also working with my team, with Panchu sir's team in Chennai. That includes Miss Mary Abraham and Mr. Harikaran, both based in Chennai, and of course Mr. Panchu supervising us. Now, we as practicing mediators, we often have this idea that why hasn't mediation really kicked off? What is it
Mhm.
exactly that is lacking today? Now, there are quite a few problems ahead of us. Right. So there have the people don't know much about mediation, and so to kind of it's because there hasn't been a good structure that supports mediation. Now, that is because of a lack of legislation, a lack of confidence by the people. Now, to tackle these problems, we have to look at, getting some standardized qualification and training, getting some, a national registry for mediators, like we have one for advocates at every state bar, have like a code of conduct, have clear remunerations and incentives for parties and lawyers who participate in the process, and probably have sanctions on those who arbitrarily deny attempting the process. Now, this all will try to make mediation a more appropriate dispute resolution for certain cases. So, the idea was that look, we need to start somewhere, and the best way might be to help law students who, uh, will become future lawyers, get them to understand that look, maybe it might be too late to change everybody's mind, but we can at least help the young people make a more informed decision
Right.
as to what kind of dispute resolution they can do. Uh, Now, for me, I graduated in 2019, and in my final year, I had two courses. Now, I used to be a teaching assistant for Mr. Dr. Raman Jamangelu. He's academic who studies non-violent and peaceful ideologies. He has written several books on Gandhi and Martin Luther King. Uh, Now, on the other side, I also had a course, and this was in my final year, final semester. For the first time, we had a course called Mediation, Negotiation, and Arbitration. And so I definitely wanted to take that. Now, in this course, I met my professor, Dr. Yonghwan Chobin. He's from South Korea, and he's pursuing his PhD at our university. Now, while I used to interact with both of these professors regularly, I had a I wanted to kind of get these guys together to create a course that helps students understand the theory of nonviolent principles and how to approach problems, without always having this idea that we should fight it out. Like most students do, law students especially, we watch shows like Boston Legal and Suits, and we feel like, no, everything we have to, I'll sue you. Now, so the idea was to change this perspective of the students and kind of teach them other ways of dispute resolution, and then equip them with the practical knowledge that we get through this mediation course, and sort of have this match together. Now, with my time at Mr. Panchu's office, we often brought up this idea. And one day, he told me that the Bar Council has approached us to draft this kind of, course. And so he straight away asked me to, start working on it. And I did. Now, the fun thing was, because through my years, there was no course like mediation taught. It was a lot of self-learning. So I had obviously accounted the things that I had learned, the courses that I had done, the books that I had read, and then discussed with other professionals that I've met in my career what would be the most appropriate way to teach mediation. And through the culmination of those years of research and self-study, this idea of this course came by, and of course, with the supervision of Mr. Panchu and with the help of my team in Chennai, we were able to draft something concrete that was then published by the Bar Council.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I will talk more about your own experiences, but that's slightly later in the conversation. Right now, I want to talk about what you said initially in this answer, that your team wondered why mediation never really kicked off. And that was one of the main reasons for trying to teach law students about mediation. So, do you think that post COVID times, probably mediation will pick up? And do you see a change in trend with regard to mediation? And if you could touch upon some of the major challenges you think that mediation faces in a country like India right now.
Well, mediation as an idea internationally has kicked off. Now, in countries where mediation has been practicing for a few years now, studies have shown, especially in Italy, that so Italy has this idea that all civil disputes have to mandatorily go for mediation, at least for one session with the mediator. Now, the cases over there have resulted that almost 60% of all civil disputes that are filed with the court and that go to mediation get settled at the mediation table itself. And those kind of statistics are quite promising, especially in a country where where the common man has almost lost faith in the judicial process because of the extremely long time that justice is served on to people.
Right.
And it's a common phrase that justice delayed is justice denied. And so we have to create this environment where people feel confident enough and safe enough to resolve their disputes on their own. And for that, there are processes steps being taken, like the Ministry of Justice is creating a mediation act. There are n number of private practitioners who are making centers with codified rules, and many independent practitioners who are forming these associations and trying to get people together, spread awareness, have some kind of level of training and qualification. These things are in the process, and once these things kind of fix into place, there will be an environment where mediation can flourish.
Right. So now I want to talk about, sir, your entire experience of drafting this course. Like you said, you've worked with some really big names in this field. So how was that like, and what were your experiences and takeaways from the entire process?
Look, this course is a very important thing fundamentally for the mediation industry in India, because this is going to shape how future lawyers are going to look at mediation. Now, one of the reasons that many practitioners today, um, even the ones that are very experienced and experts in their own right, have never actually been offered this kind of opportunity before to learn mediation as a subject in law school. Uh, so when we were looking towards drafting this course, that was always at what we were looking at, like how a student is going to benefit out of this. What kind of values are we teaching them? And of course, our research had been phenomenal. Everyone was giving different ideas. We tried to question each other. Why is this really important? Can this be taught in an easier way? How is the most efficient way to get this done? And Mr. Panchu is someone who uh, is has always been an influence in this matter. He would always, let us grow, see what we are offering to the table, but obviously keep things in line and ensure that the process is going in a structured manner, in a timely manner, and that it is in fact up to the standards.
Right. So how long did it
Uh,
take for the entire course to be? Oh, I'm sorry to have cut you off.
no, I think
Yeah.
so. We were working on this course for almost 8 to 10 months, and it only got published this August. Yes.
Okay, that's nice. Another thing that I want to know is who will be the professors for this course? Will there be new recruits that law schools will be required to take in, or the teachers who are currently taking ADR courses will teach this? And is there a different training program for the professors for this new course?
Now, as of now, I don't think there is much clarity on this. However, I'm actually myself writing a small article on this very subject.
Wow.
From the kind of research that I have done right now, it seems that there are two different standards that we need to look at. One would be who qualifies to be a professor at a university. Now, there might be some basic requirements by the UGC, but universities might also have their standards. So, say for example, some universities might prefer bachelor's in education, whereas some might require a master's in laws. Now, so those those factors are one, and the other is mediation courses today are being offered at private centers and also court annex centers, be it high courts or district courts or the Supreme Court. Now, in these mediation courses, there are trainers who have achieved this kind of level where they have done trainer courses from these court annex centers, and they have also gathered a vast number of experience that now they train other trainers. And so that standard is something which is entirely different because that is regulated purely by the mediation industry that exists today. Uh, and so before we have this kind of central standardization, it's very hard to say what exactly or who exactly can be an appropriate professor in this course.
Right.
But in my opinion, I think it has to be something of a mix of these two. Someone who is qualified, has some sort of experience, uh, and also has some experience in teaching, because this course is very different from traditional law courses. It
Right.
doesn't include a lot of theory, but it has a lot of the practical aspects to it, the role playing. um, you have to be creative, you have to kind of monitor 40-50 students at a time. So it's different from what the traditional professor's role in college has been.
I see. And just another short question: which year law students will be taught this course?
Now, that is entirely up to the
Oh, okay.
universities, I feel, because even mandatory courses, at least in my university, we had the option, the college had the option to structure the course according to how they wanted. Now, I'm not aware of how other universities have do this approach, but I think it should be up to the university.
All right, fantastic. So now this brings me to the final set of questions. And that is, you said that when you were in university, there was no structured course like this, and you developed all your understanding through your own reading of books and internships, perhaps. So if you could take us through that so that the law students who are interested in mediation and are looking for a career in this field can probably gain something from it. What was it like for you?
Well, for me, I think the first exposure to the practical mediation training I received was back in my second year by this organization called the PACT, PACT. They're based out of Goa and they conduct training sessions through different law schools and competitions. Now, the first time I encountered something like this, I realized that there are, in fact, professional institutes like IMI, like SIMI, that conduct these courses for professionals. And I thought, this is somewhere to start. Then I learned about the uh, 40-hour mandatory course by the Supreme Court. So I ran through that. Then in my internships now, um, earlier I used to think that arbitration would, a place that does arbitration would also have some kind of mediation because that's what you learn from your ADR course.
Right.
But soon I realized that that wasn't the case.
Oh.
And so, for law students who are looking to make a career in this, I think my advice would be approach mediation centers. Now, there are a lot of private centers in India in cities like Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay, Chennai that I'm aware of, in Kochi. Apart from this, there are also court annex centers, may it be in the district court, may it be in the high court. Try to catch a hold of people who are practicing in these centers. See if you can get internships with them. But as of now, I think the Bar Council also will frame some rules regarding these internships, and they have set to create these centers for legal education for mediation. And let's see how that pans out.
All right. That's nice to know. Another, and probably this can be one of the final questions to ask. So that is, there's a very famous LLM course in international arbitration and negotiation, something like that for LLMs, taken by some of the great universities all across the world. So do you think that this mediation course is going to equip the students to be global mediators of sorts? And is global mediation at a more international level uh, different from national levels? Of course, in many ways it is. So if you could talk a little about that.
Well, on this subject, it's quite interesting because for this you have to do a sort of comparative analysis. Now, most domestic countries have their own rules to regulate mediators, be it in Ireland or Australia or England. And now these domestic regulations give out the qualifications you require to practice there as a mediator. But recently, last year, there was the Singapore Convention, which was signed by a many number of countries that was promising. It was like the New York Convention, but for mediation. So cross-border enforcement of mediated civil and commercial mediated settlement agreements. Um, Now, this will be a progressive step, and in that respect, the Singapore International Center um, has issues qualifications that you can achieve, that you, if you are affiliated with that center, you can practice in all these countries that have signed the Singapore Convention.
See.
So that by far I think is the most international mediation as mediator, as you can say. But see, LLM courses more often than not are quite intensive, and they are also structured in a way that you have some basic legal education and that you are already capable in some manner. Now, we have to approach this course separately because we don't know whether this course is going to be taught in the first year or the fifth year. Um, but essentially, this course is a basic indoctrination uh, that also helps students develop the skill set. Now, this
Mm.
by no means is an upper limit. This is a full requirement of what students would need to kind of become, or at least learn to become mediators. But the actual professional qualifications required would really depend from jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
All right, fantastic. So finally, sir, given the fact that you graduated from law school only last year and have already been part of a course that will now be taught to law students for years and years to come, what's in the road ahead for you? What are your plans? What do you wish to do now?
Well, I am currently practicing in Bombay as an independent practitioner. I help my clients resolve their matters out of court as much as possible, be it through negotiation or mediation. Elsewhere, I am also helping and working with Mr. Panshu for his Center for Mediation Studies in Chennai. Uh, and apart from that, I am looking to make connections, collaborate on projects. I'm also in the process of writing some papers and getting those published. Let's see. I think this has been a great year, and I only think it hopes it gets better. We have to take advantage of all the time we have, right?
Yeah, fantastic. Sir, it was such a great privilege and honor to speak with you. I had a lot of fun and got to know a great deal. I'm sure our viewers will feel the same way. Thank you so much for taking the time out and sitting here in conversation with me. I would have liked it if it was in person, but we got to do what we got to do.
Yes, thank you for your time also, Sarthak. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure being here.